Alright, so we're checking out the SpeedyBee Master5 HD V2 bind and fly in this video. So, I don't know, a few months back I did a review on the frame, which actually was the V1 frame here. So they did some different things on the V2 and I'll kind of point them out, what the differences are. But this is the V1 frame. As usual, too busy with doing other reviews that I never got a chance to get around to putting this together. So I'm going to give away this frame in this video. Instructions on how to enter the giveaway for this frame will be done at the, well, somewhere in this video. I'm not exactly sure where I'll put it. Yeah, just follow the instructions if you want to pick up this frame in that giveaway. I did that, and also I'll link the review to the frame down in the video description because I'm not going to cover the frame in detail in this one because I've obviously already done that. I'm just going to point out what I think looks to be different between the V1 and V2. It's just a slight, not a whole lot. It looks that different, but anyway, if you want to enter the giveaway, wait for instructions later on in this video. And yeah, so obviously the drone comes pre-built as a bind and fly, which is great. You get these props here. These are these MCK, the Hurricane MCK 51466 V2s from GemFan, and they only come with one set. I'm not sure why only one set. I thought most manufacturers would provide two, but I guess these days they're cutting down, and now they're only giving me one. There's a quick start manual in the box, and it's pretty decent. There's actually more instructions as well if you go online, but yeah, overall the instructions aren't bad. There was one snag that I had, and I'll point that out in this video because it was not covered in the manual. Out of the box, these motors did come with these little covers on them pointing out the prop direction, and if it's not clear, it's basically standard. It's not, the props aren't reversed, so basically this motor spins this way and this motor spins this way, and of course same on the back. Did come with this little cover here for the O3 air unit camera, like so, obviously to protect it. It's just 3D printed, nothing special. And if you are looking for better camera protection for the lens, which you definitely want to do, I recommend getting these Camera Butter. These are just basically UV filters. They come in a little pack like this for two, and they're made of Gorilla Glass. Did not use their ND filters in this one because I wanted to show you the video footage in terms of jello and vibration, which is pretty important for at least something like this, because I think if you're looking at an O3 air unit 5-inch quad, you're probably not going to be carrying a GoPro around because you're going to be getting the footage from the O3 unit. But if you do want to put the GoPro mount on, they do include a 3D printed part. You just have to, I think you have to take this plate off of here and then use the included screws to put the mount over here, and then you put your GoPro on top. But I think it would be better if you just want the footage from the O3 air unit. You could probably put on a bigger battery here and then possibly fish this power cable through the front here, and then you could have a very long base here for a longer battery for something for like maybe long range, because it does have a place for a GPS in the back here. It's for their particular model. They did not include it, but they did include the cable. So if you want to hook up that, they include the cable for that particular module, and then you can stick it on the back there and install it yourself. But if you want to get the GPS, if you go to the product page, you can select the SKU that will have that already installed. So if you want the GPS for long range FPV, then I'd recommend just getting it from the store with that selected instead of having to take it apart and install it and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to do that. It's like, I think it's like $10 more. You get this 3D printed part, like a skid that goes on the front here, and that's to protect this aluminum cage. And I actually did not put that on, but I probably should, because the camera just sticks forward. If you're kind of flying low to the ground, there is a chance you might scrape that and damage the aluminum cage. You get a bunch of spare screws. You get these spare wire covers that go on the arms for the motor wires, and then the ones that are on here are kind of branded SpeedyBee. I think they got their SpeedyBee logo kind of like all over the place, even on the DJI antenna. They put a little sticker here. Yeah, their branding is pretty much everywhere. And then, of course, the last thing they provide are these Allen keys for basically these hex screws here, and so you can tighten them up because they will vibrate as you're flying. So the motors on here are these Emax Eco 2 series, and these I believe are 2306. And the KV, I'm not sure if you're able to see that, it's right there, it's 1900 KV, so this is meant for 6S setup. You know, when this came out of the box, it had a bunch of stickers and stuff, typical like what iFlight does to help out newbies, basically little warning stickers and stuff like that. Don't use like a battery more than 6S, etc. You know, basic stuff. And this basically kind of looks like they took a lot of the cues from iFlight in terms of like how to provide bind and fly for people that don't really, or novices that don't really know what they're doing. So they provide a lot of documentation, etc. So it's basically to that sort of extent in terms of the out of the box experience, which is good because I think iFlight is probably the best in terms of providing the best out of the box experience especially for people that are just starting out and maybe this is their first bind and fly, and this is a pretty similar experience to what iFlight provides. So in that regard, I gave it a thumbs up for that. Now the big question I think from a lot of people is, will this be able to carry a GoPro? And a lot of people that aren't familiar with 5-inch quads that typically run these 5-inch props and 2306 motors, this sort of a setup here is very typical for carrying a 5-inch GoPro. However, I'm not testing it in that regard here because I believe that for most people that just want decent 4K footage out of the O3 area is going to be good enough for most people that aren't trying to get professional footage, and I think it's actually more than good enough. So basically I'm going to be reviewing this as someone who's primarily getting this as a unit that's going to be flown with just the O3 area and no GoPro footage. In terms of the stack that's in here, it's their F7 stack. The flight controller has a BMI 270 gyro. The 4-in-1 ESC is a 50 amp BL Heli 32 ESC, so it's a 32-bit ESC. So it's a very good stack all around. I think it's their latest version, V2, I believe. Now you can't see the stack because it's hidden behind this cover here. There's this whole plastic cover with these LEDs on the side that are actually plugged into the flight controller. So here it is plugged in and lit up here, and also on the bottom as well. And these are programmable LEDs. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that here, but there's the USB-C port for the flight controller. As you can see, it is behind this panel, and you have to remove these two screws here, these two M2 screws, and then you can slide this or swing it out. It's actually connected to this standoff over here, and it'll swing out, and you can plug in your USB-C cable that way. The flight controller does have onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth as well, so you can just power this up and then connect to it via the SpeedyBee app. But if you want to connect to BearFlight via your PC, then you have to open it up that way and get access to the USB-C port. Otherwise, it is blocked. As you can see here, the O3 area here it is in the back, and it is got one of those special heat sinks here that's built into the frame. That's the same as was on the version 1 as well. You can also see here a large, very loud buzzer, and it is held there by a 3D printed part. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think the only difference here between the V1 and V2 frame is these particular covers here, and you can buy these separately at their store if you want to get those. And I believe everything else is the same. I think this part here was black on the V1 frame, and now it's yellow, and it's and supposedly there for vibration isolation. You'll see how good that is later on. It seemed to be okay, but you can be the judge of that. I'll have links to 4K full screen video down in the video description, so you guys can check that for yourself, because obviously if you're getting this for the 4K footage, you don't want to get vibration filled jello footage, and this is one thing you're going to want to verify and check for yourself. So the one thing I do want to mention in terms of the snag I had in terms of the setup is it was wired, or this was set up for Express LRS or Crossfire out of the box, even though it is quote unquote plug and play. And even though the S-Bus connection for the O3 Ariane is wired into the plug on the flight controller, on the settings out of the box for Betaflight were on a different UART and set up for either Express LRS or Crossfire. And since I was flying this with the DJI remote controller 2, I wanted to switch it to that particular UART. I believe it was defaulted to UART 3, and so I just switched it to UART 2, which is what the S-Bus connection is for the O3 Ariane, and then I switched the receiver protocol to S-Bus, and then everything worked just fine. So just something to keep in mind. Even though mine didn't come with a Crossfire or Express LRS receiver, it was the Betaflight setup was set up for that and not for the remote controller too. So if you're using Crossfire or Express LRS, I believe it's going to be already set up properly for you, but that was not noted in the manual. It does go everything in terms of those two receiver protocols in the manual or in the quick start guide, but the S-Bus connection for the O3 Ariane was not documented, so I had to kind of figure that out myself. But just switch it from UART 3 to UART 2 and that should solve your problem. So it did come with a complete tune out of the box. I think it's an older version of Betaflight. It's like Betaflight 4.3, I believe. Not the most recent version of Betaflight, so it's okay. I mean, the tune seemed pretty decent. It was a fairly windy day. It didn't have any major issues in terms of prop wash oscillation or anything like that. It wasn't perfect, so I just flew with the default rates that it came with. But because this is so much lighter without a GoPro, I think you're going to want to dial back those rates, especially if you want it to fly a little bit smoother, because it just on standard rates without the weight of a GoPro, this thing is so much lighter. It's a little bit twitchy on stock rates. Even though I added a lot of expo, it still felt a little bit twitchy because it has so much power. Because it has so much power, and so little weight compared to when it's carrying a GoPro around. So that's the only thing that I would say is if you are intending this for just the O3 Ariane footage and not a GoPro, or not you want to get any GoPro footage, then I would reduce those rates significantly, probably maybe like by 30-40%. to get smoother footage, and it'll be a little bit less twitchy because it is so light compared to 5-inch carrying a GoPro around. So here is the weight, no battery, no GoPro, and it's coming at 443 grams, so yeah, it's pretty light. And then with the 6S 1400 tattoo battery that I flew with here, now we're coming in at 667. So I don't have any longer 6S batteries, because if you had a 6S battery that was a little bit longer that could fit this whole top plate here, maybe something like a 20, I don't know, maybe like a 2200 6S, which I don't have any of that size. That might be a pretty good size to fit on here, and just move the power cord to this side of the carbon plate here so you basically have that whole top plate to use for the whole battery. At that weight, at a much heavier weight, you probably don't need to reduce the rates that much. It's going to be actually quite a bit heavier, but you're going to probably get a really super long flight time. I mean, even on the 1400 6S, I'm getting you can typically get 5-6 minutes pretty easily, and with aggressive flying and doing acro tricks, that kind of stuff. So if you want even longer flights, if you want to just put a bigger battery on there, like an 1800 or 2000 milliamp hour 6S, this definitely has a huge top plate to carry all that weight. Also, the way the frame geometry is, as you can see here, the camera is well in front of the props, so the props don't seem to get into the view of the camera as far as I can tell. And it's a typical I guess, H-style frame. It's going to be closer together front to back and wider side to side, but I'll put a photo up here of what the dimensions are. Anyway, I think if I'm not mistaken, this is the first bind and fly from SpeedyBee that I reviewed, and so far I'm pretty impressed with the overall experience, the out-of-box experience. Other than that one glitch I had with the setup, which I will be giving feedback to SpeedyBee on, everything went really smooth, and in terms of flying, it flew pretty much as I expected, and it flew pretty well. And so this is one I'm going to be actually keeping around for a while for reference footage on the O3 air unit. And as far as I can tell, now you guys can check the 4K footage, links down in the video description. If you can, double check my, my work there. From what I observed, it didn't look like there was any jello or vibration. And I did do a lot, like towards the end of this flight here, I'm doing a lot of like flips and full throttle punch outs, and I'm trying to push it so that I can get the vibrations to come out. But it doesn't seem to be coming out. I did not use an ND filter, so I just used the UV filter that came from Camera Butter. So any sort of jello wouldn't be hidden by an ND filter like you would see. Some people, they put an ND filter on there, and then that basically kind of hides the jello. It doesn't get rid of it. It just kind of changes the shutter speed so that it shows up at different frequency levels. But anyway, my point is I did not use an ND filter, so it's in bright sunlight, and I tried to get as much of those vibrations to come out, but I didn't really notice anything. I might be mistaken. If you see any, let me know down in the comments and give me a timestamp on when you saw it in the video. Again, those will be linked down in the video description. All right, so that'll cover for this model. If you have any questions, let me know. Talk to you guys in the next one.